Chapter 2, Mimetic Desire and Social Learning. Imagine walking through a crowded city street. Suddenly, several people stop and look upward. Most of us, almost automatically, look upward as well. Before we know why. Before we evaluate whether there is anything worth seeing. Before we consciously decide, the attention of other people becomes information. Something similar happens throughout life. A child notices what adults pay attention to. Students notice what their peers admire. Employees notice what their organizations reward. Citizens notice what receives public attention. Again and again, human beings look toward one another for clues about what matters. We do this so naturally that we rarely stop to consider how extraordinary it is. Why are human beings so influenced by one another? How do ideas travel through groups? How do values spread? How do entire cultures emerge from countless individual interactions? To answer these questions, we must explore one of humanity's most important capacities: social learning. Human beings are often described as intelligent creatures. This is true. But intelligence alone does not explain civilization. Imagine if every human being had to discover everything independently. Each child would need to invent language, rediscover agriculture, recreate tools, relearn medicine, reconstruct knowledge from the beginning. Progress would be painfully slow, perhaps impossible. Instead, something remarkable occurs. Human beings inherit vast amounts of knowledge from others. Long before children understand the world, they begin absorbing information from the people around them. They learn language by hearing it. They learn customs by observing them. They learn values through participation. They learn what is considered normal simply by living among other people. Civilization advances because learning accumulates. Each generation begins not at the beginning, but somewhere in the middle of a very old conversation. This capacity for social learning may be one of humanity's greatest advantages. A person does not need to discover fire. Someone else already did. A person does not need to invent mathematics. Others have spent centuries refining it. A person does not need to recreate medicine from first principles. They inherit generations of accumulated knowledge. Human beings possess a remarkable ability to learn from experience. Civilization exists because we can also learn from experiences that were not our own. Language plays a central role in this process. Language allows information to move from one mind to another, but language does something even more important. It allows knowledge to survive. An insight no longer disappears when its discoverer dies. It can be preserved, shared, improved, passed forward. Knowledge becomes cumulative. A lesson learned by one person can become a lesson available to millions. Civilization grows through this accumulation. The world each generation inherits is not merely physical, it is informational. A vast inheritance of ideas, practices, stories, techniques, discoveries, and ways of seeing. No other species appears to accumulate culture at the scale human beings do. Each generation inherits not only genes, but an expanding reservoir of knowledge. Civilization itself may be understood as accumulated social learning stretched across generations. At first glance, this process appears entirely beneficial, and in many ways it is. Yet a deeper question remains. Human beings do not merely imitate knowledge. We imitate attention, we imitate behavior, and often, without realizing it, we imitate desire itself. This is where the story becomes more interesting. Consider a simple example. A child may show little interest in a toy sitting alone on a shelf. The moment another child begins playing with it, the toy suddenly becomes fascinating. Adults are often more sophisticated, but not always fundamentally different. A restaurant becomes more desirable when others want reservations. A neighborhood becomes more attractive when others move there. An investment becomes more appealing when others rush toward it. A career becomes prestigious when society admires it. Again and again, what others desire influences what we desire. Not because we consciously choose to imitate, because imitation is woven deeply into human life. The idea can feel slightly unsettling when first encountered. Most of us experience our desires as personal. We assume we want what we want because it reflects some authentic inner preference. Sometimes that is true. But often the story is more complicated. Consider how many things become desirable because other people already desire them. Fashion provides obvious examples. So do trends, so do status symbols, so do many forms of prestige. The object itself may matter less than the social meaning attached to it. A watch tells time, yet some watches become objects of intense desire. A house provides shelter, yet certain houses become symbols of success. A profession provides work, yet some professions acquire extraordinary prestige. The physical reality alone rarely explains the intensity of the desire. Something social is happening. This does not mean people are merely copying one another. The process is subtler than that. Human beings often use other people as clues. If many people value something, perhaps it possesses value. If respected individuals pursue something, perhaps it deserves attention. If a community admires something, perhaps it matters. Most of the time, this process is helpful. Without it, learning would become dramatically more difficult. Social attention helps individuals navigate a world far too complex to evaluate entirely on their own. No one has enough time to investigate every possibility from first principles. We rely upon social signals constantly. The challenge is that social signals can transmit confusion as easily as wisdom. Financial manias provide one example. Throughout history, people have rushed toward opportunities largely because other people were rushing toward them. The details vary: tulips, railroads, internet stocks, housing, cryptocurrencies. The pattern remains recognizable. The rising enthusiasm of others becomes evidence. Desire amplifies desire. Attention attracts attention. Momentum creates momentum. The object itself gradually becomes less important than the collective excitement surrounding it. The same mechanism that helps human beings learn can sometimes mislead them. Yet mimetic desire extends far beyond markets. It influences identity, status, relationships, life goals. Many people spend years pursuing achievements they later discover they never genuinely wanted. The desire arrived socially. It was inherited rather than consciously chosen. The promotion, the title, the status marker, the lifestyle. The external symbol became attractive long before the person paused to ask, "Is this actually mine? Or did I learn to want it from someone else?" The French thinker René Girard devoted much of his work to this observation. He argued that human beings frequently learn what to want by observing what other people want. In this view, desire is not entirely self-generated. It is often socially transmitted. Whether or not one accepts Girard's framework completely, the underlying insight is difficult to ignore. Much of what appears intensely personal often contains social influences hidden beneath the surface. We do not simply learn facts from one another. We learn aspirations, preferences, ambitions, standards, dreams. This does not mean influence is something we should escape. No such escape is possible. Human beings are social creatures. Influence is part of what we are. The goal is not independence from influence. The goal is awareness, to recognize which desires we have inherited, which values we have adopted, which ambitions genuinely reflect our deepest commitments. Maturity may consist less in escaping influence than in becoming conscious of it. And perhaps most importantly, we learn what is worth paying attention to. Attention is one of civilization's most powerful currencies. What a society celebrates becomes visible. What it rewards becomes desirable. What it repeatedly notices begins shaping collective behavior. In this sense, social learning does not merely transmit information. It helps determine what future generations will value. At the same time, it would be a mistake to portray imitation as a problem. Civilization depends upon imitation. Without it, language would not spread, knowledge would not accumulate, traditions would disappear, expertise could not be transmitted, culture could not persist. The force that transmits confusion is the same force that transmits wisdom. The force that spreads fashions also spreads mathematics. The force that spreads panic also spreads scientific discovery. Social learning is neither good nor bad. It is one of humanity's most powerful capacities. Its consequences depend upon what is being learned. Seen from a civilizational perspective, culture itself begins to look different. Culture is not merely a collection of customs, nor merely a set of ideas. Culture is accumulated social learning. The knowledge, habits, norms, practices, stories, values, and expectations transmitted across generations. Every society inherits a vast reservoir of learned behavior, much of it so familiar that people rarely notice it. People enter cultures the way fish enter water. The environment is already there. The learning begins immediately. A pattern should now be becoming visible. In the previous chapter, we discovered that human beings are social creatures. In this chapter, we have discovered that social creatures learn from one another continuously. The result is that much of what we call civilization exists not only in buildings, technologies, or institutions. It exists within minds, within habits, within shared assumptions, within inherited ways of seeing. Human beings inherit reality socially, and civilization is, in many ways, the accumulated inheritance of those shared realities. This realization brings us naturally to another question. If human beings learn from one another so deeply, why do certain groups develop such powerful identities? Why do people become attached to tribes, nations, religions, communities, and movements? Why does belonging feel so emotionally significant? The answer lies partly in the same social nature we have been exploring. Human beings do not merely learn together, they organize together. They form groups, they create identities, they construct circles of belonging. And once those circles emerge, some people begin to feel like us, others begin to feel like them. To understand civilization more deeply, we must understand the powerful human need for belonging and the identities that grow from it. Closing orientation. Human beings inherit more than genes. We inherit attention, values, norms, stories, aspirations, and often desires. Much of what we consider personal has been shaped by countless social influences operating quietly beneath awareness. This capacity for social learning is one of humanity's greatest strengths. It allows knowledge to accumulate, culture to persist, and civilization to advance. Yet it also reminds us of something important. The human mind does not develop in isolation. It develops in conversation with other minds. Civilization grows from that conversation. If human beings learn from one another so deeply, another question emerges. Why do some groups feel like home? Why do people form tribes? Why does belonging exert such powerful influence over thought, behavior, and identity? To answer those questions, we must explore one of the oldest forces in human life, the search for belonging and the creation of collective identity.